So it's about building a culture of people that work together well. And it's not always about who can do the work. A lot of times it's about who's fitting. And if they're not fitting with the culture and with the team, they're miserable and everybody else, it just doesn't work.
Welcome to Paper Napkin Wisdom, where we share pearls of wisdom shared by some of the world's top entrepreneurs, leaders, and difference makers. Here's your host, Govind Jayaraman.
Hi, I'm Govind Jayaraman, and this is Paper Napkin Wisdom, episode 325. This is a podcast where we explore ideas simple enough to fit on a napkin and powerful enough to change how you lead, how you work, and how you show up. You know, as a leader or entrepreneur, you may have noticed something interesting over time. That moment when you realize the thing that drives you doesn't always drive everyone else in the same way. And sometimes, without meaning to, that gap starts to show up in your culture, in your team, or even your results. My guest today, Wintress Odom, has lived that realization firsthand. Wintress is the founder and CEO of Riders for Hire, a company built on clarity, discipline, and consistently excellent work. She's someone who values efficiency standards and getting things done, and for a long time, she assumed that was enough. But along the way, she discovered something that many leaders only learn after frustration, turnover, or burnout forces the lesson. In this conversation, Wintress shares a piece of wisdom that didn't come from theory. It came from experience, from leading people, making assumptions, and then being willing to challenge them. As you listen, you might find yourself thinking about your own team. The moments you focus on the work, the moments you rush past connection, the moments that might lead to change if you looked at leadership just a little differently. So take a breath, lean in, and let's get into episode 325 with Wintress. Let's listen in. Wintress Odom, welcome to Paper Napkin Wisdom. I'm excited to have you here today.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, so you shared a great napkin and you put the salt and pepper shakers right beside it, which is kind of great. It says, people come for the work and they stay, and you underline the word stay. They stay for the team. Why did you share that?
I think people come to knowledge at different times in their life, right? So we all develop our skill sets at different junctures. And for whatever reason, team building was something that came particularly late to me. It was something that was really hard won. I think social aspects of life in general were a little harder for me. So certainly working with a whole team was difficult to learn. And so I guess maybe that's what stuck out the most as something that I would have gone back and told a younger me, that the team really is important and that people don't necessarily come just for the job.
Yeah. And so how did you first uncover or discover that you needed to learn something there? Because sometimes when things come later, we get lots of data, like there's data coming back at us all the time, and then we're just not seeing it because we're not expecting it. It's like back in the day when they were talking about paradigm shift, scientists look for a particular set of data to prove their hypothesis. Anything outside of a couple standard deviations, they just dump because it's not expected. And it sounds like that might have been the case here. Did you get lots of data along the way? And then finally it's like, whoa, there's something here.
Yeah, I think it was like a gradual culmination of information, right? So I went through a few iterations. It wasn't like I didn't understand that in building a business, I would need to build a team. I mean, I think there was somewhere in there, I had a vague understanding that something like that needed to happen. But there's a lot of things you need to do in building a business. And that one was just very low on my list of things that you needed to do. So I think, through the years, through various iterations of our business and myself as a person, I did collect various pieces of data and input that was sort of like, maybe that's not working out so well for me. Maybe I need to adjust that part a little bit, And so yeah, I mean, I can keep talking on that. I don't want to ramble.
No, rambling's encouraged. So, okay, so you understood that and I think this is everybody gets this. And I think I think I understand what you're saying. You understand that you needed these group of people to work with you and in your organization to produce the output you wanted. But you said something interesting. You said it's not something. It wasn't something. You realized it was something I needed to do. And what do you mean by something I needed to do as it related to teams? Because I think this is a really big point for a lot of entrepreneurs, and a lot of people miss this. Becoming a team is something that you are. It's not something you do. You don't do teamworky things. It's something you have to be. And I love the fact that you said it was something I needed to do. How did you discover that? What did you do to change things?
Yeah. So I was really young when I started the Rise for Hire. I was 24, I think, 20, I don't know, 23, 25. It was young, right? I didn't have really any previous business experience. I just graduated from college. I didn't even mean to start the business. It was kind of a mistake. In fact, my first iteration of this whole thing was more like, oh, I have too much writing work. I need help. So let me go find a partner person. So I didn't even really have in my head that I was going to start a business. I was more like, I'm going to have a co-writer. Anyway, that iteration didn't last very long because we quickly got too busy, and then we ended up with like 3 people, and then we were 4 people, and then all of a sudden I like had people. But my so, and then I had a business because I had people. But my iteration of a team at that time was more like, I'm going to hang out with these people and we're going to go and we're going to hang out and we're going to drink beer after hours. And then you have a team, right? And it's like, well, no, then you have friends. And so I was trying to make being so young and not really understanding what the heck I was doing. I was trying to make a friendship circle and assuming that was a team. Um, and it really wasn't. I think at some point, and I can get into the specifics if you want, but at some points I realized what I'd created was more of this leadershipless mishmash of people that were trying to do something not very well, and it got to be a little some of the personalities I had in there ended up being kind of gossipy, and there was some people talking behind each other's backs, and it turned into this weird social circle rather than a business. And so, that clearly didn't work, and kind of fell apart. And then I kind of had to go back for a second round and start over again. So I'll stop.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Stop. Yeah.
So I think that's really interesting, right? So first of all, you started the business young and 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 kind of accidentally. So let's talk about how that all came about. You're just out of college. The information I got was that you were really excited about academic success. You did well in school, were motivated well by doing a good job. And then you came out of college and started a business accidentally. How did that happen?
So I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. My degree was in ecology and evolutionary biology. I had some vague idea that I was going to run off and study owls or something. Or gorillas. I don't know. Something cool that involved me being, in nature a lot. But then I met my husband, and ended up getting married, and that kind of I kind of wanted to stay in one place after that because then, we started talking about having kids, and somehow, traipsing around in the wilderness didn't seem like such a great idea.
Yeah, gorillas in the mist
Yeah,
didn't sort of align
exactly.
with
I was
that
like,
world
well,
vision.
that might having a baby in the jungle probably not. So so yeah, so then I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? And I really really enjoyed writing. I've always loved to put things down on paper. My favorite part of biology was honestly the reports, not the little lab thingies. So I was like, well, let me put up a website. My husband had just got into search engine optimization, and he had an internship doing that. And I was like, let me put up a website, and I'll see if I can do some writing in the on the side while I figure out what I'm going to do with my life. But then by the end of the first year, I had so much business that I actually had to tell a client that the newsletter that he wanted, he was going to have to wait for like a month because I was so booked. And then he went someplace else, and I didn't like that. I was like, well, I was like, I don't like that. So then the next step just seemed to go out. It was like, well, maybe I should go get help. And then here I am. It's been like 25 years or something.
That's great. So your hunt for help as you started to go. I like how well. First of all, I think that you um, are playing it off like, oh, I just did this and then I did this, but I have a feeling that you may have put a little more oomph behind each one of those efforts. And I also think it's really interesting that you took this thing that you really enjoyed about the work that you did in school and made it what you did overall and started to hunt for work. So did you have some like when did you start to bring on people and realize that, adding people wasn't helping you grow either the work you were doing or the impact you were doing? It was just causing more maybe challenges.
Learning how to build a business was just it was a journey, right? So, I didn't, I think, everybody's business journey is very different. Mine was a just try things until they work. And so it was maybe less intentional than some people's journeys. I think that some people do come in and say, like, here's my business plan, and I'm going to go get a loan, and I'm going to do these things. And I worked in this industry for 5 years, so I know what I'm doing. And so I'm going to get, investors. I mean, and it's a little bit more intentional. Um, I just kind of always did the next thing. I just always did the next thing that made sense to me at the time. Enjoy the work very much. And it just always seemed like the next step was to grow it. I'm not sure why. It just was.
Mhm.
And so I guess I think you asked like at what point did you realize that first iteration wasn't working? Well, at least that's how I'm interpreting your question. Very specifically, I realized that iteration wasn't working when I became pregnant with my first child, and then I had my first child. He's 19 now. So, at that time, I was away for like 2 months, and I wasn't completely away. I was like checking in, but I was like working from home, and I was like not in the office all the time with the other team members, and it just kind of I think things that I should have known were there the whole time surfaced, and it became very clear what I had. Um, I had just a very dysfunctional environment that I did not realize that I had. So the team was not able to maintain without me, but they also just got kind of nasty.
Right.
Um,
And when you were there, were you aware of all the things you were doing to keep it under wraps and working forward? Or
I don't think I was. I really don't. I think I thought. I mean, I realized, you can't just step away as a business owner and expect everything to just run perfectly. But I didn't. I don't think I was aware that it was as dysfunctional as it was until I stepped away for a second and needed them to, sort of run things not on their own. That's really because I was checking in all the time, but I just needed to be able to trust them, in the office by themselves. I mean, some stuff happened, like we had some people timing on accounts that, they weren't working. They were literally just sitting there doing nothing and timing and charging clients, like not good things, like bad things, and so I just didn't realize that that's the sort of team that I had.
Yeah.
Um,
So how did that feel? Like, I mean,
oh,
now,
I was devastated.
right? Because
Yeah,
you're
I was
away.
hurt. Yeah.
You're away. You're having, it's an exciting time in your life. You're having child number one, but you've this business that you've built is all of a sudden feeling like a bit of a mirage, I think, right? I mean, that's the way I remember the first time I stepped away and discovered a similar thing. It was really disillusioning. It was like, well, what are we doing here? Like, and it made me feel really badly about myself. Did you have any of those thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I was hurt. Obviously I was overworked. I wasn't sleeping. I was trying
Yeah.
because you don't sleep when you have
You
a
also have this like
newborn,
little
right?
crying thing
Yeah,
over in the corner.
it's like, and I'm trying, I was trying my best to like work remotely and but this was also, this was, I mean, I'm trying to think back to that year. This was like pre-Zoom and all those things, right?
Right.
It's like working remotely was like you're calling in to like check on people, right?
Right.
This isn't like working remotely today. And so yeah, I was really, really hurt. So, ended up having to essentially fire that entire team except for like two. And got an entirely there was a whole saga involved with that. They literally they literally refused to go back to the office because they felt that some it was just a made up pretext. The owner of the building had said that they needed to change the locks or something, and then one of the writers said that made her feel unsafe, and then all of the writers said that they just weren't going to go back to the office until I got another office. It was ridiculous.
Mm.
I mean, and it was not an unsafe situation. It was really just it was like a mutiny.
Yeah, I was going to come up with the same word. It felt like that. It felt like
it was a mess. So, I just basically let everybody go except for like two. And then I did start over at another office. But and I honestly can't remember why now, but that's what happened. And then when I did that, I kind of started so I tried a different model of team building. I was like, well, obviously, that didn't work.
the bar and beers isn't working. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Shockingly.
That was not it. So let me try something else. So I think, at that point I decided that I hadn't been like leadery enough, maybe, maybe I wasn't like bossy enough. I don't know. Like, I hadn't I had tried to make everybody, friends and pals, and that had not given the right, business result. So I uh, I did a lot more distancing from the second round of team that I had. So I did attempt to still do things, like we would have like Christmas parties, or we would have like, like we would go and eat lunch together and stuff. But it was it's very looking back, I feel like it was me attempting to do these things. Like, I understand that people need to hang out together in some capacity if they're going to work together. So we should have lunch, right? It was not, still wasn't really building a team, because I still don't think I had any idea how to do that. And I think a lot of the efforts felt a little superficial and ended up being a little superficial. That was a much better team, though. But it was still not the team that I have today. I still think I've gotten a lot better at it.
I
So
love
I'll stop.
how I love how how much how willing you are to sort of take a jab at these development cycles that you went through. It's like these drafts, it's like I have a picture of you drafting this version of the 25-year-old Wintress bars and beers. Okay, cross that off.
Cross that. That'd work.
Let's tear that piece of paper off. Let's throw that over there. Okay, now I'm going to be more leadery, distance them, but we still got to do this stuff. So you've got a checklist that you're doing. And then it feels like you've evolved again. So you cross that off, you've piled it, thrown it away. What do you do now? How are you building teams today? And I think this is a really important thing for a lot of people to understand. People are the secret sauce of every business, and we tend not to understand how important it is, especially every single time we add another person, we're adding an exponential number of interpersonal relationships. And if we don't have the infrastructure to support that, it destroys that.
Yeah.
And it's really either or. You're either supporting your growth and your people with the ability to communicate with one another and in a structure that supports their personal and professional growth, or you're not. And if you're not, well, it's breaking apart the walls. So what does the new version of this look like, and how are you doing that list?
Yeah. One of the things that I've discovered in life as well as business is sometimes the moments that are the hardest bring about some forced but much needed growth. So there was another kind of thing that happened in our business. So after I had that second office, there was the financial crisis of 2008. And we went from, I thought we were just doing fantastic. I thought we had all these clients. We had some really big names. We were, I was making money. It was just great. And it just kind of fell apart overnight. We had some major banks we were working with. We had entire departments we were working with just wiped out. My business model and this, I'll get back to answering the team building here in just a second, but it's kind of all related. So my business model at the time had been, I really wanted to have employees instead of contractors. I felt that employees would be more loyal to the company. I felt that would provide them more security. I felt it was more like the right thing to do. That's great as long as you have steady work. But then when we had no work, I had to let everybody go because I'd lost all the work. So that was heartbreaking. That was really, really, really rough. So, I kept 2 employees, but everybody else on contract. And then I got rid of the office because we couldn't afford it. And we all moved, moved remote. This was 2000, I guess it was 2009. So, my full intention was to work back to getting an office. Because I thought, you can't have people that work together well if you don't have an office. You have to have employees. You have to have people physically in an office so that they can be a team and they can, work together. But in the interim, I didn't have an office, so I had to come up with tactics to keep people together while they weren't together.
Mm-hmm.
So we used Skype, which is dead now. It made me sad. It's gone. But anyway, it's officially gone. But, back in the day that it was a thing that people used. And we used it all the way up until it officially died, until they officially killed it. 6 months ago?
Yeah. That was recent.
But anyway. We used Skype, and so we, everybody in COVID was this is, virtual office spaces, yada yada. I'm like, I've been doing this since 2009. We've been doing this forever. We got this down. But I had to develop, different team building tactics because we had to do this remotely, and so what I learned is that you don't all have to be in the same office, and you can deploy a variety of tactics to, keep people together, um, and it works. So some of the things I've learned a lot from our clients, a lot from our clients. And so at the time I was working with a one of our clients, his name was Ed Wallace. We wrote a book for him, and he was a successful business owner. One of his he ran several Harley Davidson dealerships, and one of his chapters and was about team building. And I was very interested in that one because I was like, oh, look, I don't do these things very well. Maybe I can learn something here. The title of the chapter was something about like make them sing or something. And so he had a very specific tactic where he said whenever he brought on a new team member, he literally they would have a big meeting where everybody would meet the person, and he would ask them to sing. Literally ask them to sing in front of the group.
And did he spring it on them? Like, did he know?
He would straight up spring it on them.
So it's like, hey, come on and meet everybody.
Everybody here.
And then they're there.
And they have to sing a song.
By the way.
Yeah.
Sing us a tune.
Yeah. So, and then but basically what he said it was great. He said it was great because it broke down, here you are trying to be, like kind of, I don't know, so you do best foot forward and I don't know these people and, everything in new situation. And it breaks down all of those barriers because all of a sudden now you're like, I got to sing, right? And then then the other people start singing with you. And then it just literally just ends up breaking down all these barriers kind of immediately. And it's funny and everybody's laughing and having a good time. And I thought that was actually kind of interesting. And the other thing that he said was that the people that don't refuse to sing, he said they never lasted very long. And I thought that was another interesting thing. And the reason why is I also don't know that I understood that part of team building is also understanding who isn't going to fit with your team. So it's about building a culture of people that work together well. And it's not always about who can do the work. A lot of times it's about who's fitting. And if they're not fitting with the culture and with the team, they're miserable and everybody else, it just doesn't and the people around them, don't know how it just doesn't work.
Yeah. I freaking love that because think about it. The first thing I had in my mind was you're giving the person like this test of vulnerability. Are you going to be vulnerable to do this? Right? They have to leap. But your team. Everybody there has already done this before.
Yes.
So everybody's there, then all of a sudden comes to them in this moment where they're feeling, oh, how's this going to go? I've got to impress everybody. I feel very vulnerable. But then you have your whole team come around you in this beautiful act of support. It's brilliant. It's genius.
It is, right? It's actually really smart.
Genius.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I don't do that specific thing. But it really made me think about, really bringing people in,
right.
And really, really building a team in not a, let's go have lunch together and have these stilted conversations about, but like actually building a team, where people are, both working together, but, genuinely enjoying people's company.
And putting people in a position where they know that someone has their back.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, building that skill. Most people, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my impression is that most people have never, if ever, experienced what a good team is. And the moment you give people the opportunity to feel like what it is to be supported with proper support, like when someone's got your back, that's a different thing. And that's really embedded in your napkin, right? They stay for the team.
Yeah.
They stay for that.
Yeah. I think that's true. I think that for a lot of people, unfortunately, going to a job is just work. It's just something they have to do between 9 and 5, right? But if you're with the right team, it's really not just a job. It's a it it's a place where you can all create something together and build something together. It's almost like I want to call it a calling because that's probably too strong, but and there's something really special about the shared experience of building something together. It's very
Absolutely.
satisfying.
Yeah, it is. And so yeah, you talked about using the tools like Skype and some different building tactics to be able to bring people together, or team building tactics to bring people together. I don't want to lose that point, which was, before you talked about Ed Walls and his book that you helped write, and you borrowed some of that inspiration. What are some of the tactics that you did that because you were inspired by it, but you
Sure.
don't do the singing thing.
Right.
So it inspired you to do things. So how did you turn it into your thing, Wintress?
Yeah, so I don't know if I have anything quite as dramatic about the singing thing. Um so for example, some of these things might seem almost silly or obvious, but they really, I think, helped us a lot. We used to have a weekly meeting where everybody just sat and talked about. It sounds like a project update meeting, right? So it was literally just project updates, um, and I actually got rid of that. We do all the project updates separately, project by project now. Um, and as a group meeting, instead of everybody listening to everybody else's project updates, blah, 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 we just have weekly shares. So and literally you can bring anything you want. It doesn't have to be. It's completely open ended. And so we all have a group. We use Google Chat now, but it doesn't really matter what format you use, right? So everybody brings anything that they wanted, and people are so creative. Some people bring, something that's work related or a tip, or like, this is how I learned a new Excel thing, today, or whatever. But, people bring pictures of their vacations. People bring, I mean, anything. They bring a funny joke they saw, it just doesn't matter. And so I think the open-endedness of just being able to bring anything that you want to share, it's more like natural. People get to know each other and what they were doing last week and what they care about, and you get people's little odd senses of humor and how everybody, right,
Right.
everybody, everybody's, quirky in their own way. So just getting rid of that time that we were using for something that I thought was, productive, and using it for something that could be argued as not productive, but it is incredibly productive, if that makes sense.
It really does, because there's a great napkin that came out recently, and it's from an old friend of mine, and he gave this first to me, a decade ago, I think. Feels like it anyway, but it was connection before content, right? And he says connection plus content equals change. So what he's really trying to say is that connection plus challenge equals change. And what he was really trying to say is you can challenge people, but connection is the capital that you need to be able to truly challenge people into transformation. And what it sounds like you're doing is providing people the opportunity to create that connection. Was it magical immediately, or did it grow over time? Because many times it takes a little bit for it to gain momentum, right?
I think it did actually change things fairly immediately, but obviously the more, the longer people get to know each other, the more, I guess, closer people feel, right? But yeah, I think it did almost overnight. It was like, oh, look, people are just, sharing random stuff about each other, and it's just fun. And I think I was worried that we were going to waste time. right? That, well, but just time just talking about nothing, oh, is this business, useful, right? But it really, it's really made a huge difference, I think, to the way people interact, on the projects themselves. The other thing that we do that's, I think, really, really unique, one thing that I was always, I think I say always worried about. I think that's the wrong way to put it because I'm not sure that I verbalized it to myself enough to worry about it. But I think in the back of my head, it was there. Was I was worried about us becoming too much of a hierarchical structure. And I think that's probably why I also didn't want to become I didn't start off being like, I'm going to be the boss. I was like, I'm going to be friends. Um, I want people to feel, like heard as people and feel like they have input. And so I was worried that, um, as we grew, that we would end up with like too much of a hierarchy. And if you end up with a hierarchy, I feel like that breaks down sometimes people's ability to communicate with each other because you have this power structure built
Mhm.
in, right?
And make decisions and optimize and
It-
innovate, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, there's so many problems.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so what we do is, so we give the opportunity for any of our writers who are interested in project management to be a project manager for us. And not everybody wants to. Like some people just don't want to project manage projects, and that's cool. But if they want to be a project manager, we do train them to be a project manager, and allow them opportunities to do that. But the thing is that the same people that are project managers on some projects are writers on other projects. So, and vice versa. So you might be a project manager on project A and your writers are, Sue and Joe. And then on the next project, Joe is your project manager. And so it's very, it's role based. Versus, so we know what role the project. So I'm big on processes. I'm a very processy person. So we have roles that the project manager, needs to fulfill, and they know what those roles are. And so we have all those written out and we train to those, but that doesn't mean that it's not about being a boss of the project. It's more like I'm fulfilling these roles in this project. Whereas in another project, somebody else is fulfilling those roles. And so it works really well for us. And I think it keeps things fairly flat as far as, nobody feels like they're above anybody else in the structure.
And they also know where the dance and the handoff is, right?
Yes, and
Because
everybody
they've
knows,
practiced
yes.
this. They've
Yeah, and
practiced this from
everybody
both
knows where the
sides.
handoffs are, yeah. Yeah,
That's
because you
so
have to do
good.
both sides. So, I'll talk about getting inspiration from people. One of my very first bosses, well, maybe early bosses, was at a bar I was working at, Nick's Place, and,
You and Bars.
I know, yeah, well, anyway, um Uh, he he had everybody in their first week do everybody else's job. So if you came in as a bartender, you still had to do the server shift. You still had to do still had to go back and work in the kitchen. You had to do the cleanup shift. You had to do every single shift that there was, even the kitchen shift. Like you had to go back and prepare food. Like as a chef, like you weren't the chef, obviously, but you had to go back and chop veggies and all that stuff. He made everybody do everything that first week. And I thought that was a really good tactic because at least everybody knew what everybody else had to do and had that experience at least once. And I thought that was a really cool thing.
Super cool, right?
Yeah.
And that would have been very early learning for you to understand that there are different roles and there's value to every role
Yeah.
and there's value to knowing what somebody else's role is and then practicing the handoff by wearing the different hats is just brilliant in your more recent version. So you talked, and I don't want to lose this point, but you talked about who fits is really important, like discovering who fits. And the office karaoke, meet everybody thing, that was one way to do that. Finding out who fits and who's not a fit. And this was something that happened in your first version and second version. You had some people who weren't fits that didn't get I don't want to say weeded out, but get discovered early, because it's a mutual not right
Yeah,
fit. You're not right for them and they're not right for you. And they should be free to go somewhere where they're going to be valued and where they're going to feel like they can become everything that they are. And if it's not
exactly.
here, they should be somewhere else. So what do you do to check for fit early? Who's right and who's not?
Yeah, so what we do is really specific to us, and it works because we're a writing company. So what we do is we have all of our new writers come in and write internal material, primarily blogs, for us first. During that time, we go through all of the onboarding stuff with them. We go through the same process with them, with us as the client, that they would have to do with an actual client. So we are the client, and we kind of test drive the whole thing. That gives us a really good idea how they would work with the team and also how they would work with the clients in a real situation. Um, so that that's essentially how and that also kind of gives them an opportunity to see how, if they're liking our work environment, if they like us, if they're feeling it, um, and vice versa, without getting them all the way to the point where they're working with a client and then it doesn't work out, because I don't, that's just not good. I mean, there's a lot, obviously that's not good for business if you end up with a writer on a client project and then that relationship's not working out, on that end.
That's such a solid instinct, Wintress. One of the things I say when talking to organizations is you're either practicing in private or you're practicing in public. And nowhere on no sports team anywhere in the world does someone come in as the hotshot rookie and immediately go into the biggest game and the biggest role. They learn the playbook. They practice on the practice field. They learn from the veterans. They do it internally before they perform externally. So you practice in private and perform in public, and this gives them a safe way to do that and gives you a safe way to put them in the field, but you don't put them in the field before they've had a chance to practice. And the practice field looks a lot like the real field because you're making yourselves the client.
Yeah.
It's kind of brilliant.
It works really well. It works particularly well because of what we do. I don't know how you apply that to, other industries, but I'm sure there's, something there when people get creative.
There absolutely is always a way if you think about it. And you said that you're a very process-oriented person, and it sounds like you're
I love
all
processes.
yeah, you're lighting up. Like, if you're just listening to this, you just gotta get
Like you
on
said,
video.
process.
Yeah, like, she's just getting excited. The sparks going all over the place. So describe your process for identifying, here's an opportunity for me to create a process, and then what you do to discover and put it out. Maybe that's not systematic, but maybe just think about it. How do you discover an opportunity to improve? How do you stay open to that feedback and looking at it, and then find a way to implement that new process or structure?
Well, so to be honest, I mean, I still work on the business, obviously. We write a lot of standard operating procedures, so I do a lot of processes for clients, which is one of my great joys in life. I love mapping. I love mapping processes and finding inefficiencies. I know, I'm a geek. I can't help it.
That's great. It's so good. It's so good. I did not expect you to say that. So, like, so good.
I mean, bars and standard operating procedures, they go
Of
they
course.
go hand
Yeah,
in
they go
hand,
right
right?
hand in hand.
So, a lot of what I do for processes is for clients. But of course it applies to your own business as well. I do, in right now we're working on our marketing processes in specific, which has long been a forgotten stepchild in what we do. We tend to just always be doing the client stuff, and so we ignore our own. And so, that's been fun because that's a process that I haven't really gotten to tackle much or had the time to tackle much in our own organization. And so, yeah, I don't, you write process maps, you figure out what the steps are, you figure out where the gaps are, you figure out where there's too many handovers sometimes, or you got one person doing, like you have like 5 people doing what one person should be doing, right? I'm very visual. I like to draw it.
Cool. That's amazing. Wintress, there's so much that you do that you do through this process, and I think that one of the things that's really impressive about this is you talk about people coming for the work and they stay for the team, and then you talk about as we peel the onion, you go into how much you care about how clear it is to your team what they need to be doing. And that's how you build the process maps. Even something as simple as, when you're mapping it out, you can see that if 5 people are touching something instead of one, it makes it better for them. And I can feel the empathy. I can feel the fact that you care about your team. So you went from wanting to hang out with them to wanting to lead them, and now you're just taking care of them and making sure it's easy and works for them. Am I getting the
Sounds
arc right?
Yeah, that sounds about right. I think that's true. I love our team. I mean, we've gotten really, really lucky. We have some just amazing people. And I do think that I haven't really thought about it before. So I think you brought up a good point that building the processes so that your teams know what they are doing goes a lot towards developing good teams. Or else people are constantly building the system while they're doing the work, and that can get very awkward. And the more friction you have in a system, right, when you're trying to produce something, the more opportunity there is for people to have conflict, because you don't have clear um, processes. If you have the clear processes and at least you have the system down where people know what they're supposed to be doing, then the conflict becomes a lot less. And obviously, people don't typically enjoy conflict. So,
Yeah, I think your observation around friction is really, really special. But I want to go back to your comment about I love our team. And I think that's a really great place to bring up. Um, 11 years ago, a great friend of the show, John Ruland, gave us a napkin and it was said, what you appreciate appreciates. And what he meant was when you appreciate somebody, when you say thank you to somebody, when you really mean it, they can feel it and they appreciate and value not only to you, but to everyone. And his napkin launched a movement that he created for himself and a business called Giftology, and it really spread globally. He suddenly passed away last year, and since that time, we've been paying forward his gift to us by asking every guest to appreciate somebody or shout out somebody at the end of their visit with us. So, who would you like to share out today? Shout out today.
obviously, the team, right? Um, yeah, no, I mean, we would not have a business without the team. We would have nothing. We are, even in like manufacturing industry or something, I think it's still about the team. But with us, we're a service-based industry. We literally have zero without our team. So yeah, I would love to thank them, and that's it.
That's beautiful. Thanks for joining me, Wintress.
All right.
Thank you, Wintress Odom. And thank you for the quiet truth you shared today that is probably already settling in. People may come from the work, but they stay for the team. And as you sit with that idea, you might notice moments in your own leadership where the work has been front and center, where efficiency mattered more than connection, where the standards were high and clear, but appreciation was unspoken. Wintress reminded us that leadership isn't just about doing the work well, It's about creating a place where people belong, a place where effort is seen, where differences in motivation are understood, and where culture becomes a multiplier, not an afterthought. And here are a few of the key takeaways from today's conversation. No, not everyone is motivated by the same things you are. Efficiency without connection creates distance. Appreciation isn't inefficiency, it's fuel. Culture doesn't slow results down, it sustains them. Strong teams are built on intention, not on assumption. So as you head back into your week, you might ask yourself, what would change if I led for belonging, not just performance? What would shift if the team mattered as much as the task? And if one idea stood out to you, grab a napkin and write it down. Share it with us with the hashtag #PaperNapkinWisdom, because sometimes the smallest reminder creates the biggest shift. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message, share it with them. Thanks for listening. And remember, big ideas don't need big words. They just need to be lived. Make it a great day.